Would you like to learn to do Oriental brush painting? Hello, I'm Darlene Kaplan, international award-winning artist. I've been teaching, exhibiting for more than 40 years. If you like my video, please subscribe. If you're interested in my classes, you can go to darlenekaplan.com and all the information about joining the class will be on my website. Today's lesson is going to be 4 of 6, and it's going to be part 1 of 4, and it's going to be the goldfinch and coneflowers. So let's get to it. When I start my classes, I always start out, this is my paper, you can't see it because it's white on white. I always start out with handouts for the classes, and my handouts with the classes I send out about maybe close to a week early, and that way everyone has a chance to look at the handouts and get a chance to practice. And I've been teaching via Zoom this is 4 weeks now, so I'm brand new at it. It's kind of fun. Okay, so what we're going to do is start out with the goldfinch. You're going to start out with just ink, and I'm using a little horsehair brush, a small horsehair brush, and this is going to be for my outline. And I'm going to start with the beak. So the way I start my classes is I start them out. You practice number 1, that's the first stroke of the beak. And then you go on to number 2, second stroke of the beak. And then you come down to number 3. Then you put the little cap, the little head on, and then the eye. And then we take it from there. We keep going from there. So that way everything is step by step, and you get to practice, and then you can put, like each time you go, you're going to repeat this stroke again. So you get a lot of practice on repeating. So the first stroke is number 1, and the direction, also the stroke order is number 1. The stroke direction is going to the right. So each one of those components is equally important as to which one you do first and the direction that you go. And the reason is we want the tip end of the beak to be the darkest part. So number 1 stroke is just when you hold your brush, make sure that you have 2 fingers on top, 2 fingers on top, thumb here resting, and the ring finger kind of backs up the forefinger. And then it's kind of a push and pull, a yin-yang thing going on with your brush. So number 1 stroke, get my camera set so you can see. The number 1 is straight across, and I'll use darker ink so you can see it. Basically, when you outline, you don't want to outline into really dark ink. But in order for you to see it, I'm doing it dark. And then the second stroke, we'll repeat number 1. Second stroke goes up. So there's your second stroke. Now the third stroke comes down. So we'll repeat number 1, 1, 2, 3. Now we get to repeat number 1, 2, and 3 again. So this is how I teach. It's a progression. So number 1, and you can turn the head any direction you want. Number 2, number 3, and now we're going to put a little cap here on the head, and that's going to be colored in ink. And the little, close that off, the little beak off. Now we're going to start with number 1 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Color that in. And now close that off. And the eye, depending on what bird you're doing, is going to show you where the eye is going to be. So the eye, sorry, I have a new camera and I have a hard time keeping up with it. And the eye is going to be more toward the back of the little crown on the head. So the eye is going to be back a little ways. So this right here is still yellow. Okay. Now we're going to do this again, and I'm making him a little bigger than he should be, just so you can see it. So now we're going to go number 1 again. Number 1, 2, 3, 4. Close that off. 5. And now we're going to fill in the head. So the head is going to come down the back of him. So start at the top of this little crest and just follow that down a little way. And then inside here, under the beak, and down around, and close them in for the back. So that's the part there that we're going to do. Now we're going to start all over again. So number 1, and this may seem time consuming, but it's a great way to learn because you just keep repeating the strokes over and over again. It teaches you also discipline to sit and do this. This is not the easiest art in the world to learn, but it sure is gratifying once you get it. And then you're going to come down again to the back of the head. And in here. And no two of my birds are going to look the same, so that's just the way life is. And this is going to come all the way down. This is going to come back a little. Now the wing is going to come about halfway into the part that I've got drawn here. So the wing is going to come down and out to that back part, and then it's going to come down like so. Now we're going to draw him all over again. Because we have to fill in the strokes and the, now, number 1, 2, 3, see how you start going fast after a while. 4, to the head, eyeball, that may be a little bit too far back, but we'll have him looking down. Back of the head. So since the eyes were back there, I'm gonna have this tilting a little bit. Whoops. And this part. To there. Now I'm going to change brushes to a combination brush, combination of 2 different hairs. It's a medium size, and it's a combination of sheep and fox on the inside. So I'm going to go into my dark ink. I'm going to get some of the dark ink out, put it in my little container. I want to work into a light container, white if possible, because the stone is black. And when you go black into black, you can't tell what you're doing, so you can't tell how dark your ink is. And you want it to be dark enough that it shows, especially on these wing feathers. So now we're going to go into the wing. So the wing is going to just fill into the space here. So we've got, but I need to leave some white in between. So I don't know if you can see this or not. See, I'm going to leave white in between each row. And then if I want to put that in white, I can go back later and put that in white. If not, I'll leave it the color it is. So this will go just a little ways down. And the next one, and see, you're just following this shape. And then that one's going to kind of come up here. Now I'm going to leave a little spot in between. So again, I'm just following this shape. And now for the wing feathers, these are the flight feathers. So instead of going down with my stroke like a teardrop, now I'm going to use the tip end of my brush. And I'm going to have the strokes kind of drawing in a line sideways. So they come out, and then those will come down. And again, I want to leave a little bit of white in between there. Now for the tail is going to be right under here. And he's sitting kind of high, which is fine. So the tail I'm going to put right in this area here. And it's going to come out because I'm looking at it sideways. So the little tail is going to come out to sew. And their tails are a little longer than that, but because he is sideways, you can't see the whole tail. Okay, so that basically is the outline. And I'm going to make the eye a little darker. Now for the color. And the little strokes that you do the wing in, all that is you get your color in your ink, in your brush, and that stroke is going to come kind of tilting your brush a little bit and pull it down and then stop. Pull it down and then stop. And you want it to be close to this stroke, but don't run into it because the water will melt these two strokes together. So you want to be able to see each, and see as you run out of water what happens. So you want to be able to see each individual stroke. And you might not think you can, but when this gets dry, you'll definitely be able to see that. So what I want to do now is get some of this color out of the end of my brush. And I want to go into a soft color, and right under the throat area, I want this to have a little bit of the gray coloring. Just a little tint of gray. And I can put a little right there in the bend of the neck as well. Okay. And remember, when things are wet, it always looks darker. When it dries, it's going to be very soft. And if you're not sure if it's real dark or not, hold it up to a light or hold it up to something, and you'll be able to see through. And if it's, see how pale it looks when you hold it up to a light. So that's how you can tell whether or not it's going to be too dark or not. And if it's too dark, you have to live with it. Nothing you can do about it. So now I'm going to go into my white color, and I'm going to color the bird in. And I'm going to go into, this is a rattan yellow, and I use a squirt bottle. It works great for me. This is a rattan, and the rattan yellow is toxic, so you do have to be careful with it. And it looks a little brown when it's dry. As you mix it around, it'll get to be a really, really bright, beautiful yellow color, especially when it's mixed with white. So I'm going to get a little bit of that color out, put it in a separate dish. This is my dish I'm working from. A little dirty and confusing, but I in my mind it's great. Okay, so now I'm going to go into a separate yellow. This is the Marie's tube yellow. And the tubes dry up, so I just put them in a little container to where I can put a little water on them. When they dry up, don't throw them away. Just keep them and put a little water on it. It refreshes them, and you'll be able to reuse. And then I'm going to use a little bit of an orange color. And this is my orange. This one is a powder. So I use different kinds of paint. I use the tubes, the powders, the chips. So there's a lot of different variations out there you can use. So a little bit of the orange in my dish as well. I don't need much orange because it's a very strong color, and I'm not going to do that much. So first of all, I want to put halfway into my brush with this white. My white is not real thick. It's not real runny either, but you don't want it to be real thick. If it's too thick, it's not going to come out of your brush. And remember, I have water in my brush already. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like the video. And I'm going to go into this rattan yellow. The rattan yellow, see how dark it is because it's gotten dry around the edges? It's deceiving because you think it's going to be a really brown color, but it's not. It's going to be a gorgeous yellow color. And the tube yellow, and a little bit of this orange. Not much because I don't want him to be orange. I want him to stay a bright golden yellow. So I'm going to work with this one right here because he's the one that's finished. I'm going to start right in that little section here, right in the back around the eye. Now I'm going to lay my brush a little bit sideways, And I'm going to come down into the belly, and I'm going to stop. I don't want to go down all the way through because that's going to be white. And then down to there. So that's the color. The color on the TV here on this looks a little brown, but it actually is a bright, bright yellow. Okay. So now I'm going to clean that brush out just a little bit. And I'm going to go into some of the solid white here. And I'm going to put this white right here, starting from the backside, pulling forward and into that yellow. So it'll blend right into the yellow. Now, if you want to keep this was wet when I put this yellow in. So see how it's starting to blend into the colors are all starting to blend together. So what I can do is to keep that white, I can just go back in, reestablish my white, go into here, have my white there as well. And there's white at the bottom of that, so we're good. Okay. Good. Now what I'm going to do is go into a little bit of the yellow and the orange, and we're going to color ever so lightly the beak, starting at the bottom and pushing forward. And the eye is going to be black. I'm not going to put that much color on it right now because black runs like crazy. So that's the little, well, I will just to show you. That's the little bird. And remember, this is not realism. This art is, it's a Lingnan style. And what it does is it saves a lot to your imagination. And it makes the viewer look and think about what they're seeing. And that's the part I love about this art. Okay, so that's the bird. Now the bird is going to be sitting on a coneflower. So the coneflower is a separate little subject here. So what we're going to do on this is we're going to get the coneflower out. And we're going to do the same process. This paper's never easy to get. We're going to do the same process on this. And put your hand on your paper. Fill on one side, fill on the other. The one that's slippery is the side that you paint on. And on the coneflower, you're going to start from the center first. And if you make one that's going to be a halfway, that you can't see the back at all, it's going to be a little more cone shape. If you make one that's going to be flatter, then it's going to be more an oval shape. So we're going to have the bird sitting on one like this. So let's make it more of an oval shape. So what we're going to do first, wash out my brush. I always wash my brushes out after I finish with them, because if not, you'll pick one up and it'll be dirty and you'll try to paint something and you'll have a dirty brush and it's very discouraging. So I'm going to start back out with my little horsehair brush. Now from here, I'm going to start with this flower. So we'll go step by step. So you're going to do the center of the flower first. So around the base of the flower, just a little, always around the base is darker. So just establish where he's going to go. And it's going to be darker down in here than up on this side. This little foot, the little bird's foot's going to go right into this area here. So what you do is you have a plan in your head, and then you kind of follow through with it as you go. So I'm going to pretend that the foot is not there, and I'm just going to put some little dots and dashes in here for right now. That's going to be colored in at a later date. Now from here, this is the one we're doing. So now I'm going to, I'll put it on this side so you can see what I'm doing. When you start your drawing, you want to start in the center, and you go number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back and forth from side to side. And you'll notice it's in an oval shape. Think about a cup and a saucer. So always the inside, outside is oval. The only time it's perfectly round is when it's facing square into you. So if you take something like this plate, and if you look straight into it, then it's a perfect circle. Okay? If you tilt it a little bit, then it becomes imperfect. And then you start, if that's the middle, then you start, see the front is longer, the back is shorter, the sides are longer. So now the front becomes shorter, the sides become longer, and the back is almost the same as the front. So see how this works? So the only way you get one perfectly round, and they're not fun to look at anyway, perfect square round. It's kind of boring. So we're going to start from here, outside, and pull in. Jiggle and pull in. Now one over on this side, and you can leave space because he's going to have a stem in here. And next week is going to be the stem. It's going to be the stem and the leaves. This week is the flower and the bird. So you just go back and forth and you fill him in the way you want him to be. Bring it that way. You can start from the base and go out, or you can start out and go in. Either way, it's up to you. And once I get going, I don't follow my drawing, because you want to be able to do your own thing. And if you copy to learn the strokes. Once you get the strokes and you get the composition, then you start doing your own thing with it. And you don't want this side and that side to be exactly the same either. And then after a while, we're going to start bringing them down, because remember, we couldn't see the back side. And we've got a bird that's going to be sitting there too. It's not going to be on this one, but showing. Okay, so that basically is my design for the flower. Now, in each one of these, I want to put a real light, a little vein from the center out. Ink you can't cover. So anytime you put ink in and you go over it with a color, you'll get a really subtle little mark there, and it just makes it look really nice. Bright, wrong, or indifferent. There. Now, when you color it in, we're going to start with the center first. And when we do the petals, what you do is the petal that you drew in first, that's the one you paint first. And then you paint them the order that you drew them. That's kind of a given, because that's really important, because the first one, if it's in front of you, it's going to be the main one, so it's going to be darker than next to the darkest. Then they tend to get lighter as you go back, and then back here is going to be lighter. So for the center is going to be a little bit of a sienna. A sienna is a dirt color. It's kind of a shoe polish looking color. It's a brown in this kind of art. So what I want to do is go get a clean my brush, and I'm going to use the flow again, combination brush. Go into a little bit of white on the tip end of my brush. Go into this sienna color, a little bit of the sienna, and then I'm going to go into some of this orange. And I don't want to go into the yellow. I want to keep it orange and sienna. And then from there, I'm going to just dot and dab my little inside here. And I want to keep this side back here real soft and light. That's where my bird foot's going to be. This half, I want it to be darker. Okay, so that's my center for right now. Now I'm going to clean my brush. When I paint these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a little bit of red. And red is a very, very strong color, so you do have to be careful with red. Red and yellow are two of the colors that when you finish a painting, you have to wet mount it, or I wet mount mine. I never dry mount my work. And when you wet mount it, that means you make up your glue, and you're going to get the back of this soaking wet with glue and water. So that means these colors are going to spread a little bit. So you do have to be careful with them. So that's why we use white as well. So I'm getting out some red, and my little container here doesn't take but just a little bit of this red. So I'm gonna put the white in my brush, a little bit of white, not much. A little bit of this dark red first. And I'm going to start from the center and pull out just a little bit. So I want this darkest right next to the center. And I try to follow my teacher's work and method as closely as I can. And my teacher is Mr. Henry Wu, and he's been my teacher forever. If he ever gives a workshop, I think I'm one of the first ones to sign up for it. And every time I take a workshop, I learn so much more. So never think that you know enough that you don't need to take lessons from a master, which he definitely is. Now I'm going to go back into my white. And I'm just going to have that white and a little bit of pink, just ever so gently. And I'm going to bring the two colors together. So the white is going to come to the pink. And see already how it looks pink? And then this one. And the moisture from my brush will blend everything together. Pulling this one forward. So you pull everything forward. Pull it toward the center. And one's in the back. Now, if it's not blended enough for you, just go back in and feather it out gently. Now remember, each one of these, we put a little black line right down the center. So those will probably show through once we get going, once it dries a little bit. So you can see that one right there. And that's how you do the flower. Now to combine the two, there's two different ways you can go about this. If you have a flower or a painting with that you want to add something to it, you can add a bird. Do the flower first, add the bird second. If you want the bird to be your focal point, which is kind of what we're doing because it is a finch and we want to show the beauty of the color of the bird. So what we're going to do to make it easier for you is to do the bird first and put the flower around the bird. So it's harder to try to connect a bird to a flower that's already done because you have to start with either the beak and then you have to judge how far away is it. And so it makes it very difficult, I think, for beginners and not beginners. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to use the one that I drew for the sample and I'm just going to put a flower around him. So I'm going to go into my little drawing here, and he's going to have a foot that's going to come down over into this. So the legs are always under the beak, under the wing. So we'll put it about here for the flower. Now I'm going to draw in his leg. Looks like he's sitting on an egg. Now I'm going to have the leg coming out from under here. It's spreading. Too much water in my brush. I'll have one little foot here. Okay. So he's sitting there and the foot's getting a little bit too big because of too much water in my brush. And that's one of the joys of this art. Control any water. Now from here, I'm going to put the flower. And coneflowers come in, they come in an orangey color, red. They come in white, pink, purple, purplish pink looking color. And that's the only color I know they come in, unless they come in yellow. So you can make it any color you want to make it, as long as you make it interesting. And I always put my videos on YouTube so my students can have access to them at any time they want. So it's on my YouTube channel, Darlene Kaplan. If you're interested in seeing the videos or not. Okay, so basically that's the flower. And then to color it in, it's the same as before. So see how when you do your preliminary work and your practice, then you can come back and just complete. And you can practice on all of your pieces that you start like this too. And then when you get ready to do it for real, then you've got a real good idea of what's going on. And I'm not doing the center yet because that foot is wet and it grew. So I'm going to give it a chance to get dry before I go in there and put wet on it, because wet under wet does not work that well. It's kind of hard. So there's your pink, and you can just leave it like the dark pink if you wanted to. Now I'm going to go into the white, and we're going to join the two together. Join it. And they'll start to get darker pink because I'm picking up that red into each brush stroke as I go forward. And I hope if you like the video, you will want to join us for the Zoom classes. And if you want to check out the schedule, go to darlenekaplan.com and you'll find my schedule on my website and all the information that you need to sign up. And that's basically, and again, I'm not going to do the center because this is still wet and it's going to take too long for it to get dry. So that's going to be it. And then next week will be part 4 or lesson 4. And it's going to be part 2. So I'll make another video at the end of the class and I'll pass it around as well. Thanks for watching, and everyone have a great night, and I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.